Hey subscribers, so today I've got an SFT shocker we're going to go ahead and tear apart. So we're going to go ahead and go through the solenoid, we're going to go through the regulator, we're going to go through the firing assembly, and then we're also going to go through the solenoid inserts. So just want to give you a heads up what's up today. I know this is probably the longest video I've put out, a little over an hour, but it does break down each and every category and each kind of part of this gun. So hope you guys enjoy. Let me know. Thanks. Alright, so to get everything off, first thing I'm going to start with is going to be the ASA here, and that should be an 1/8 inch. So I'm going to break those loose. That'll make it to where you can get the macro line off nice and easy. That press in here and pull the macro line out. Just a little quick FYI, if this thing is ever leaking air, no matter if you put a new macro line in, there's another it's a 009 O-ring that's in there. Take that piece off and we'll put a O-ring in there and you're good to go. I'll do a separate video to show you that, but that's where you do that. So there you go, get those parts off the side. We will unscrew the regulator. Alright, you want to be somewhat gentle so that way you don't hit the frame here. We'll set that off to the side. And now take a screwdriver here, unscrew the two screws for the grip. Move the grip out of the way. I guess the other one's unscrewed. Let's take our battery out. Now what's funny is this battery expired in 2016, so that battery is most likely bad. We're going to toss it. And now we are going to basically undo this little ribbon in here. These ribbons are pretty durable. You do want to be careful with them. And all you do is you want to pull up on the ribbon to take it away from the board, just like that. And now we don't have to mess with anything else at that point. Make it easy on this side. Let's go ahead and take the rest of the grip panel off so that way we don't have to fight with it later. Again, kind of set it off to the side here. I'm going to set it up here and make sure all my screws go together. Now, again, it should be 1/8 inch. You're going to take your grip frame off. And we're doing this because we're going to go ahead and service the solenoid. And we're also going to service the solenoid manifold. Make sure that's all clean and ready to go. Once you've done that kind of one time, it's quite a few years before you have to do it again. But for me, rebuilding markers literally all the time, and I sell them as rebuilt, completely gone through markers. I do this pretty much daily. All right, so there's that. Now our grip frame is going to come off, and then that ribbon, the harness, is going to slide through. Now up here there's a couple pieces, so I'm going to put my grip frame off to the side here so I don't mess with it. So you've got your this is very interesting. So you've got your upper solenoid, or your upper board. This is your upper board here. Your eye is coming off up here, so we're going to gently pull the eye out, and then we can get to this. Alright, so I got the grip frame off. There's your solenoid wire, harness, or not, sorry, the eye wire. Good to go. One thing I got in the habit of doing when I work on guns is I make sure I put all my tools back each time. Because if I have a big messy workspace, it makes it actually go, takes longer. So now I'm going to grab a .050 Allen wrench, a little guy like this, and we're going to take off the solenoid 2 screws. So that is going to be here and here. So I would try to use this end first and not the ball end. Break these guys loose. So that makes it a little bit easier. Just a heads up, I went and invested into a set of Bondis tools, these guys here. So Bondis Those are the best Allen wrenches I've used so far, and I've used them for about a year now. Blows every other set of Allen wrenches I've ever had out of the water, so big fan of that. Alright, so you unscrew your two manifold screws here, or not manifold screws, but your solenoid screws. Now those are hard to get. You can usually find somebody selling them on eBay and whatnot. If you don't have a set, don't lose them, don't break them. So we're going to go ahead and set that off to the side. Now, before I work on the rest of the gun, we're going to work on the solenoid. So we're going to take that thing apart, basically break loose some of the O-rings, make sure that in the future it's not going to have any problems, and I can also make sure the spool inside the solenoid is in good shape. So we're going to set the rest of the gun off to the side right now, and we're only going to work on the solenoid. Alright, so we're going to focus on the solenoid. I'm going to put my Allen wrench away, make sure that I don't have to worry about that, where it goes. That one's easy to lose. So now we're working on the solenoid. Small little screwdriver, and there's two screws on the very back of the solenoid. Just going to end thread those guys. Unscrew them. They're pretty long screws, so it's going to take a little bit to unscrew them all the way. When that happens, now you can actually break apart the solenoid here. There's a little bit of little cushion up top here that sticks the two sides together. So you've got a butterfly little gasket in there, and then we're going to talk about the rest of the solenoid. You don't have to do anything with this side, so I'm not worried about this side. I'm just worried about the spool side. So at this point, let's go ahead and take the other side off. Now, one thing to remember is if you look on top, this side is completely flat. If you look at the other side, when we actually take it off, you'll see that there's a little bit of a lip on that side. So there's a little lip there. That side goes down, the flat side goes up. There's a little spring in there, along with another butterfly manifold. So I try to work on a very small area with this because these parts are easy to lose, so you don't want to do that. And then I also try to keep the orientation all the same so I know which way it came off and which way it needs to go on. So inside the actual manifold, or the solenoid housing, is a little, what is called a spool. So there's your spool. It basically, as it goes back and forth, it opens up the different channels to basically allow air to go to different chambers, so it can actually move the air around. And what's interesting is actually this spool is bad. Maybe really hard to kind of see, but right here on this O-ring, if we go around, there's a little lip that sticks out. So as me refurbishing these guns, this now makes it to where this is one of the pieces that goes bad, and this gun wouldn't work. So this actually does kind of put a hiccup into my setup, because I was hoping that these problems wouldn't occur. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull another solenoid out of my box, and I'm going to take one of these guys off and switch it out. So we're going to spend a few minutes doing that, and then I'll come right back to the video showing you a good one versus this one. So I went out to the garage and got another little spool out of one of the other junk solenoids I have that basically wouldn't fire at all. So let's go ahead and take a look at the difference and see if we can see it. It's going to be really hard for the camera to pick up, so I'm going to grab the other camera and I'm going to try to zoom in as close as I can to show you what I'm looking at. So let's see if we can capture this on camera here. So right there where that little bulge is, that's not supposed to be there. So let's see if I can use a little pin to show you exactly what I'm talking about here. So let's see, where are you? Right here. That is not supposed to be there at all. You see everything else is nice and flush. This one is not. That one has a little bulge sticking out right there. Let's see if I can get a little closer. Let's see. Let's go 2 times zoom and see if we can get really in there. Okay, once again, right there. That bulge is not supposed to be there. That will cause a solenoid not to work properly. So this one, as you can see, no bulge. So sometimes you wonder, you know, is it worth keeping old parts and things like that, or old solenoids? In some cases like this, and I've come across this quite a few times in the last couple years. So at that point, it is worth getting. So, all right, let's go ahead and put the solenoid back together, and then we'll go from there. All right, so at this point, this little piece of solenoid, unless I need an O-ring off of it, not gonna happen. Probably this one will probably go in the trash so I don't lose it or try to use it next time. So at this point, we are now using the good manifold, or the good spool there, and we're gonna get some Dow 33 here. A little bit Dow 33. Doesn't take very much, and we're gonna lube up these O-rings. You know, it's one of those things, I don't know how long this marker has been sitting, but it was one of those things that just takes a small little coat of Dow 33 on here, or sleek, or you know, sometimes lurker lube, all kinds of things. But I just use what the manufacturer says, and that is Dow 33. All right, so now that I know that piston, that spool is now lubed up, and slide it right back in its housing. Go back and forth a couple times, make sure everything's lubed up. Then I'm going to lube each one of these butterfly gaskets, just a little bit on each side. Make sure we're in good shape. Then we're going to work on this side first. Match it up to what the. So we're going to line it up there. And we're going to line up to where this little butterfly side on this works. So now we're going to take the little spring, put the spring on there, and then if everyone remembers, this has got to face up. So put that on there. Then you take your 2 screws, 1, 2, just like that. Screwdriver, screw them on there, and off we go. Okay, and obviously with these markers and everything, you definitely want to use hand tools. Anything like a drill or anything like that will cause cause problems. It can strip out these screws. I mean, there's not really torque specifications on these or anything like that. It's just a little bit of hand tight, nothing crazy. All right, so this side we're gonna match it up. So look where the spider gasket or the butterfly gasket goes. It just slides on there, push it back to make sure that it's level. And see, we got a little pinch on that side, so that's not supposed to happen. So let's get the rest of that gasket back in there. All right. There we go, nice and even. Again, you want to double check all this stuff before you just start putting it back together, because it's really easy to pinch things. And I have a ton of spare parts, but you may not, so that's something where you want to be careful with, not to break things. Even with me having a ton of spare parts, I still am very, very careful in everything that I do. All right, so there we go. We are in good shape. So that is a solenoid serviced. So lubed up the O-rings, made sure that the actual solenoid itself didn't have any kinks in it. This one did, so that is not a good thing. We do want to make sure that we got that repaired and we're in good shape. So there you go, solenoid's in good shape. All right, so now that we're done with the solenoid, let's go ahead and set the solenoid aside, and we are going to work on the gun again. This time I'll take the barrel off so that way I'm only working with a small portion of it. All right, so at this point we are going to work on the actual manifold here. That again requires the 0.05. So let's get that guy out. Now with these ones, again, I would put the head in and not the ball ended. and it's just a small little twist. Obviously you hear those things break loose, and then we can use our ball ended once it's loose. So these are 2 little screws here. Now, a couple hints and tips with the manifold. This is an aluminum manifold, so you definitely be very careful when you're doing your manifold screws into these 2 holes. They can strip out, and it's one of those things where no one's really making these manifolds anymore, so they are getting harder and harder to find. Sometimes, gotta get my rag. Sometimes you'll have the gun leaking, and you've replaced all these O-rings and you've done everything. There's these little screws right here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are basically drill holes where they drilled something in to do something else inside the gun, and then they put the little plugs in. Sometimes those plugs will leak over time. They do have red Loctite, but it's one of those things that over time they could leak. So if you're getting an unknown leak, you can't figure it out, it's just pouring air from under, like the manifold area, it actually could be this little screw right here. Take that guy out, put new Loctite on it, and in good shape it is. Okay, so at that point we've got our manifold off. There it is. Alright, so manifold, these guys have some really little tiny O-rings. So we're going to take them all off. The top ones are going to be 1 millimeter by 2 millimeter. And on the bottom side, you're going to have 2 1 by 3 millimeter. So I'm going to that one and that one. And then in the middle you have a 1 millimeter by 2.5 millimeter. So these O-rings don't need to be serviced very often, but again, like I said, I'm rebuilding markers completely, so I'm going to replace it completely. Okay, so I'm going to now go into my O-ring treasure trove. I took all my O-rings separated with numbers and everything like that, so that way I can find them very easily. So at this point, I'm going to grab 3 of the 2 millimeter. 1, 2, 3. So there's 3 new ones. I'm going to grab 1 of the 2.5. And then I'm going to grab 2 of the 3s. There you go. There's all the new O-rings. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of lube on those and then go from there. So I just take a little bit of lube, kind of pick them all up, and then spread that lube evenly around them. Now the other thing is, and I'm going to go grab it real quick, so I'm gonna come back, is I want to spray this down with alcohol on top. I want to spray the whole bottom, because again, I'm selling this thing as basically refurbished. I want it as clean as possible, so I'm going to go ahead and clean it off with some rubbing alcohol. A little bit of rubbing alcohol, and I'm going to spray it just on here a little bit. Easiest thing to do is take your rag, because put it on top of the rag, a little bit of a spray, nothing crazy. And then just go wipe all that down. And I get in the habit of doing this again because the person buying it for me is expecting something to be super clean and whatnot. So I try to clean it as much as I possibly can while I'm rebuilding it, and then that way I know when they get it, they got a really good, solid, clean product at that point. All right. So at this point now, we are going to put these O-rings back on. I'm going to start with the bottom. So that is the number 1 millimeter by 3 millimeter. So that goes like that, and it'll end up being the O-rings are round, but when we squeeze it in there, it becomes an oval there. So that's one, that's gonna be two, so we can get on there. Okay, there's two. And then the slightly larger one is a 2.5 that goes in the middle. There we go. So now we have 3 brand new O-rings ready to go. So we're gonna put the manifold back on top. Take our 2 little screws. We're gonna use our 1.5 or our 050, and put those back in. And then once you get down to where, use the other end, make sure you don't strip these guys, just a little hand tighten. There you go, hand tight, good to go. Now we're gonna take our other 3 O-rings, 1, 2, and 3. Good to go. And since we're right here, let's go ahead and put our solenoid back on. Again, being very careful with these solenoid screws. It doesn't take much to strip out that aluminum on that manifold. So you want to be careful, make sure you thread it in properly, not cross-threading it. All right, so thread it in a little bit. And once you feel it to be a little tight, then you want to go ahead and put the other end in, the very good squared end off, and then tighten it, just hand tighten. You don't have to go crazy on this, hand tighten, that's it. We're gonna put our eye back in, so we'll do that. Go ahead and put the eye in. And just a little squeeze right there between. You don't want to, at that point, just squeeze and press in, and then so far so good. All right, so since we're right here, let's go ahead and replace the O-ring under here. So put that one back. This should be a 3/16. So let's go ahead and start moving some of these O-rings out of the way. Try to keep a nice clean area and keep all the O-rings separate. So that's the screw we're after. So 3/16 in there. Give it a little push, and this one's got a locking ring, so it's gonna be a little bit tougher. At that point, unscrew it. Okay, that's gonna come straight out. Now there is a pin in here. Do not lose those pins. If you do, I wanna say I've picked them up over at Ace Hardware. In their little itty bitty little section, not too bad. Right here is a number 14 O-ring. So we're gonna do, again, we're gonna spray that off a little bit with the rubbing alcohol. I want everything to be super clean. There we go, the rubbing alcohol's on there. Wipe it off. Good to go. Now we're gonna take this O-ring off. O-ring off, like that. I'm gonna grab a number 14 from my treasure trove of O-rings. There's all my O-rings yet again. Okay, so number 14 is gonna be over here. There's number 14. A little bit of Dow 55 or Dow 33. Put that O-ring back up there. Now this is set just like this. Voila. And then that screw going back in with that 3/16 Allen wrench. And now I know for sure I'm not gonna have any air leaks up there anytime soon. Screw that down until it feels tight. And then give it one little piece of tightening with the other side. And now we replace that O-ring. So at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and put the grip frame back on, and then we are going to service our regulator next, okay? Gonna put our grip frame back on. What I'm gonna do is spray the top a little bit with the rubbing alcohol. That way, again, I'm getting a nice, good, clean product by the time I'm done. In some cases, you may have to get a toothbrush. Old toothbrush works just fine, and you've got to basically brush little areas in here. This gun was actually fairly clean when I got it, so this was not the worst one. Hopefully I get to break one down that is actually pretty bad, so I can show you guys, you know, some of the stuff that you'll be encountering if you decide to buy a used gun on eBay or something like that. Not from me, but you know, bought one somewhere. You're gonna get, could be a pretty decent mess. So with this one's a little tricky. When you put your grip frame on, you want to make sure your harness obviously gets down into the actual grip frame, but then make sure to grab the harness and pull it all the way down, because what happens if you don't do that, when you pull it back up, what it'll do is it'll kind of wrap around this button, and then as you tighten it down, it can actually damage the button, and then you'd have to solder a new button on. I do those repairs, and that's a very common repair that I have to do. So again, feed the harness down in there, and once it's down in there, grab the harness before you put the grip frame back on. You make sure the harness is nice and straight. That way it didn't catch on anything. So you want to make sure it didn't catch on anything here. It's just nice and straight right there. Good to go. And at that point, put your two screws back on. Alright, so 1/8 inch is what we're after. I lost my Allen wrenches for a second, even though they're right in front of me. Alright, so 1/8 inch. There we go. Use the ball end first. Thread it down. Alright. Alright. As soon as you feel it tighten up just enough, take that squared off end, tighten it just a little bit more so you don't strip these screws out. Again, nothing, you know, super tight or anything like that. It's all hand tight, and you're good to go. So while we're in here, the other thing I'm going to do is go ahead and plug in my harness. Some of these harnesses are pretty easy. Some will fight you a little bit more. Biggest thing is to get it squared up as much as possible. I'll use a set of needle nose and just push down on it, just like that. Get it lined up, push down, and you're good to go. And now you just want to make sure your harness is out of the way, and that's out of the way. I'm not going to put a battery in it just yet, and I'm also going to leave this guy off for just a little bit longer until I'm ready to actually button it all up and make sure everything's plugged in right and everything like that. So next part of this is going to be my solenoid. Or not it's not a solenoid, regulator. So regulator, I'm also going to take off the macro line. I put brand new macro line on every gun I sell, so that is going to be garbage. And then we'll go ahead and start taking apart the regulator. So it's going to set the rest of the gun aside, and now it's all about the regulator. All right, so now it's time to take apart the regulator. So first things first, let's see, it should be a, give me one of these sizes. I don't know them all off the top of my head. Ah, that's right. All right, 5/64. There's two screws, one right here, they're at the top, unscrews, and then there's one at the bottom that unscrews. Just like that. Okay, and then we are going to use the 3/16 to take the adjustment screw out of the bottom. So it's going to come with a, and you can actually see someone didn't take that out previously, so they were trying to adjust it with that screw still being in there. It's going to come with a spring and a little top hat we're gonna set that aside. We don't need any of that. And then if we hit the bottom like that, this is gonna come out. At this point, the only thing we have to do with this is a special O-ring on here. I know that most of the kits that are out there that sell you a 1470. That will not work. It will basically rip and burst every time. You actually have to use a 1475. So I'm gonna take that off real quick. So 1475, I actually have that in a different set of O-rings. That's down over here. Again, this one's the one that, a little bit of weird one, 14 D75. So it's 75 durometer, it's a 14. This is a special size O-ring and a special one for this by itself. So we wanna make sure that if you're gonna rebuild it, if you're buying a standard kit offline, it's usually not gonna have the D75, it's only gonna have the D70. And if you wonder why you're bursting this O-ring, that's gonna be why. I'm gonna start putting O-ring kits together with that, so that way we know 100% that, or at least I know 100% you're getting the correct O-ring. So we're gonna lube that sucker up, put that O-ring on, and you're good to go. A lot of people ask why I don't replace the little number 3 in there. Been doing this for a while. I've never really had that 03 go bad. If it does go bad, I replace it. This one's just a real pain in the butt to get to. I'll only replace it if 100% that it has a problem. There's certain times that I do that. Again, the rest of the marker, every O-ring gets replaced. If there's something that's a real pain in the butt that just never goes bad, doesn't really have any problems, then I'm not gonna change it. So that is that one O-ring on this marker and these regulators that I don't touch. Everything else I do. So that's the bottom half. So go ahead and screw the bottom half back in so that way we don't have to worry about it. So all that does is slide straight up. You want to make sure that none of it really moves, so straight up. You can position that piston a little weird, and then it can cause damage to the regulator, and then next thing you know, it's not sitting right, and it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And it's leaking air, so that's not good. All right, so there's the bottom half. All right, so now we're done with the bottom half. We're gonna do the top half. This is a 3/8. Slides in there, give it a little twist. It'll undo itself. There you go. I'm just gonna give it a little pop. You can see somebody's lubed this up, so they've been pretty good with it. There's a little pop it inside there. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to get into the piece down here. This piece can be very troubling to get out, so that's fun. And then there's also an O-ring up in here. So it's gonna take me generally a little bit to get to that O-ring. So I'm gonna kind of do it and then fast forward through it so you guys don't have to sit here and watch the whole time. There's a reason why a lot of people are not a big fan of this regulator. And it's because it can be a tedious process to get this loose. And it's also not the most effective regulator. A lot of people, when I was playing, when these guns were common, would put a CP regulator on, and they would put all kinds of different things. There we go. Okay, got the O-ring out. So once you get this O-ring off, then that little piece at the bottom actually comes up quite easily with the proper size Allen to grab it. There you go. So that's the little piece in there. So first things first, we're gonna get the new O-ring for this. This one is a little bit different. Again, I make sure that I get you guys, or I use the right O-rings. So this one would be a number 12 Dura 90 urethane O-ring. So it's a little bit different. It's not a black one. It's actually a urethane, which is made of a completely different material. So this is going to be a Dura 90 number 12, and it's a urethane. It's a little bit different. It's not black, it's white because it's a different material. So this is fairly easy. What I do is I basically put that on, try to use my pinky or just something that I can guide it into the hole properly. Push it down just a hair. Doesn't have to go down a lot. And then what I do, oh, it's upside down. So, I'll try it again. Probably a better way of doing this, and if anybody knows a better way, definitely let me know. So I try to do is get it started in there. Once it's started, then I take the top of the regulator and I will push it all the way back down and then pull it right back out, and I know that piece is now pressed in there and I don't have to worry about it. So there you go. So now I can focus on the actual top of the housing. So the top of the housing has 4 different O-rings. It's got a number 17 there. It's got another number 17 here. Oh, and see this right here where this O-ring basically split in half? As these markers get older, some of these old urethane O-rings in there will actually become gummy. And that means that it breaks, and basically, if I tried to put air to that, it would have basically been a big old nightmare. So I'm very glad that I take these things apart before I even try to put air to them, because if not, it's just basically, it's ugly and not pretty. All right, so this one's another Dura 90. You can see these O-rings are a little thicker and they are a little bit more problematic because they're not as malleable as the Dura 90s or the Dura 70s. So that one's the old one. Let's put a new one on. A little bit of lube. So that one's on there. So oh man, those O-rings are fun. I'll take my little screwdriver, be very gentle with it, but I will lift it up just enough and use it to lever it over there. So there's one more O-ring that is down in there, and it's a number 9. And it's actually one of the reasons why I made this little needle, because I don't have a dental pick set, which a lot of people ask me, Tim, you do O-rings all the time, you don't have dental picks? I'm like, no, I've gotten by with most of the tools I have, and I know it's a small investment, but if it works, I'm not gonna change it. And a lot of people, for the first time they're doing their own markers, aren't gonna have all these tools to go and make it super easy. So I show them how to do it with the stuff I've got. So the trick is, and I know you guys can't see what I'm doing because this one's super tricky, but basically what I'm doing is getting up underneath the lip. So if this was the lip, I'm getting up underneath it, twisting so I can basically push it out. And got it out here at the bottom, so let me pull that guy out. There you go. And this one is getting replaced with the number 9. So let's go and pull number 9 out of my treasure trove of O-rings. So there's your number 9. Good to go. Oh, it could be a number 10. This is number 9 in the. Oh, that's for sure number 10. Okay. So I'll make sure. Sometimes my O-rings get mixed up, so I want to make sure that it's truly a number 9. So it is. All right. Again, gonna fast forward this a little bit. This one is a pain to get in. It's such a small little area. And it does not go in very nicely at all. All right, so we'll go and fast forward through all this good stuff. All right, that one actually wasn't too bad. Easiest thing is, good set of needle nose pliers, and you're basically, once you get it folded in there a little bit, you're just kind of pushing until it grabs the inner lip. And then what I do is I will take a Q-tip, and I will take some additional lube on the Q-tip and get it in there just in case I took any off when I was actually installing it. Because again, I want to make sure that is nice and lubricated in there. It's one of the crucial pieces to the regulator. So, all right, so at this point, we need to put our number 17s back on, and then we can reinstall the regulator. So once again, my treasure trove of O-rings here. So this would be number 17s. A little bit of lubricant. Again, I used Dow 33, nothing special. It's worked for me for a very long time and never had any problems with it. If you're up in the northern environment, like the colder areas, I think it's Dow 33. They make a thin or a light solution, and that makes it to where in the freezing temperatures it doesn't stick as much. All right, so at that point, we'll go ahead and put the not sure if I put lubricant on this guy, so I'm gonna double check to make sure. Okay, so we've got our O-ring in here. We have our little spool or poppet there. We drop the poppet in, just like that. Screw the top back on. Get your 3/8. Bring it back down. And we're good to go from there. Now we just gotta put our 2 set screws back in. And that set screw is the 5/64. So put that set screw back in. Again, hand tighten, nothing more. Put this bottom one in. Now this one is, once you've done your regulator adjustment to whatever your velocity is that you want, that's when you tighten that one. So I'm not gonna tighten this one just yet because I still need to set the velocity. And now we're gonna put that back on the gun. So just like that, screw it down, and we are in good shape. All right. So we have one last piece, and that is going to be service the actual firing assembly. So before we get into that, let me go ahead and put all my Allen wrenches away. Again, something good, kind of good thing to get in the habit of doing. You don't lose parts this way. It doesn't end up all over the place. Some people are like, but if you're still working on the gun, why would you put it away? Again, just making it easier because it puts less stuff in front of me when I don't need it. So Allen wrench is away. We got our screws set off the side. We have our pieces, all our things right where they should be. All our garbage O-rings are in one area. And now I have a clean workspace. So let me go ahead and get a battle swab so we can get the engine out, and then we'll work on the engine. So now we're gonna work on the firing assembly through the back here. And that is going to be the number, or the 3/16 Allen. Untwists. That's going to slide out. Now you can see that is an original bolt guide because it doesn't have a little indentation in there. And then to get the rest of the firing assembly out, take a battle swab and you basically push from the front out. Alright, so there is the bolt assembly. And now the firing can. Alright. There is the fire can. So you can tell this is all lubed up. Again, probably in pretty good shape, but again, for me, knowing that 100% these guns are working and in good shape and beautiful and everything like that, I'm gonna go through and make sure I put all new O-rings so I can say 100% that I've done all the work and that I trust that it's gonna be in good shape for a while. So this is a pretty quick process. We'll start with the firing can. So there are three 22s on here, and then there's two 17s. So this is going to be just quick work of this, of pulling all the O-rings out and replacing the O-rings. Got it. All right. Now, if you're getting a leak down your barrel of the gun and you've lubed up some O-rings and whatnot, one of the #1 spots that you will have leaking down your barrel is going to be this number 17 O-ring here. So I have some times where I've taken a gun apart and I end up having paint still in there. And when you put a new O-ring on there, the paint is basically keeping it from sealing 100%. So I will go through with a Q-tip on this one and make sure that there is nothing inside there. Because again, I don't want leaks. So make sure it's 100% clean and it's just lube in there and nothing else. And you do that, you most likely will not have a leak down the barrel. All right, so let's go in the treasure trove of O-rings. We're gonna need two number 17s, and we need three number 22s. And again, I do this piece by piece. It's just kind of habit. Some people do it, take all the O-rings off and then put all new O-rings on. I like to do kind of, again, piece by piece. So we're gonna do the can first. So a little bit of lube. Make sure top and bottom all the O-rings are lubed up really, really well. Number 17s just kind of slide in there. Just like that. Now on the NXT and the older shockers, or the newer shockers, they would actually have a little split here for the high efficiency bolt. And this piece would come off and there'd be a number 22 on there. Or sorry, number 20. This marker does not have that. This is an original firing assembly. So non energy efficient or high energy or high efficiency. All right, so again, just making quick work of this, all new O-rings, and now my can is done. Next, we will do the bolt, clean it off really good. And the only one I'm replacing is this one. This first one is a bumper, so that doesn't have to be replaced, and the bumpers are hard to find on these old bolts. If you don't have a bumper, what you can do is take a number 10 O-ring and stretch it over and then get it down to here, and it'll be as thin as this one. I can tell you it's not easy to do, but if you can get it done, it will work as an act like a bumper, and it works fairly well. All right, so our number 16, new lubricant on there. Don't need very much for these guys. And now we have a nice new number 16 O-ring on there. And the reason we use Sleek or Dow 33 on these guys and not Dow 55, Dow 55 tends to swell up the O-rings, and on these markers, any swelling will slow down the actual bolts and everything like that, and then it won't fire correctly. Spool valves are a little bit different than stack guns and things like that. So these ones are quite sensitive to O-rings rubbing and whatnot. All right, so I'm gonna start off with the more difficult O-ring. Inside here, if you can see down there, there is a number 17 about midway down. So do the same thing when we did in the regulator. Just get up underneath it. And once you're underneath it, kind of do a little twist. And hopefully you can get that guy out without too many problems. you're saying, Tim, if you had a dental pick, it'd be much easier. Yes, it would. But I'm not all about easy. Okay, there's that number 17 out. There are going to be 4 number 22s on here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So again, quick work of that, nothing crazy. First one I'm going to put back on is going to be my number 17. First things first, let's go and lube up all those O-rings. Let's get them going. And let's get that number 17 in there first. I take my pinky and kind of slide in the groove. I take my pinky, slide in the groove, and then I just take it and you kind of feel it pop in. So you want to feel it pop in. And once it pops in, then you know you're good to go. You can take a little bit of lube and just make sure it goes all the way around on the inside in case you took any lube off when you were putting it on there. And that's now lubed up. Take our number 22s, put them all back on there. Again, I start off with the outer ones because it makes it easier to slide over and get to the inner ones. So there is all new O-rings on our firing assembly. So that goes in there. That goes through just like that. And there's basically our firing assembly. We forgot one little piece. We do have to make sure our bolt guide gets new number 12s here. So number 1, number 12, and number 2, number 12. For the most part, the Dura 70s work just fine on this. It'll seal up. I found if you have a problem with your marker sealing up or just on this side, if you take the Dura 90 urethane O-rings that we used in the regulator, these guys here, if you take those and you put them on this guy, that actually works quite well and it seals up quite a bit. Very, very seldom will I have to do that, but every once in a while I do because it's just tolerances aren't there, it's just not working right. So now, got all new lube there. One thing I do to check to make sure it's sealing is I'll put my finger here and I should feel my finger gonna get pulled a little bit when I seal it up. And I can feel that. I can feel it pushing and pulling air, so I know it's sealing. All right, so now we're gonna slide the entire engine back in. Just like that. And hand tighten. There we go. All right, so we only have one itty-bitty little task left, and there's actually the solenoid inserts. So I'm gonna wipe down the gun, clean up my station here a little bit, and then we're gonna go attack these guys. So let's we'll take a small break and we'll come back to that. So last little bit of this journey with this marker is gonna be an 1/8 inch. We're gonna take the solenoid inserts out. So it's as easy as just kind of twisting them. At some point they're gonna stop twisting out and slowly, if you don't want to damage any of these guys, especially when you're putting it back in, you want to slowly pull this out. The very end of it is gonna have a screen. That's one, and then the second one. There's that. Now usually, this is one of my personal markers, I'm not going to mess with these O-rings, but again, when I'm selling to somebody else, I will put all brand new ones on there, so that way, again, they're getting a really, really, really good finished product. So from the factory, they actually put this piece on last, so that way they can get all these O-rings on instead of having to try to go over these threads. So one of the things that I try to do, if possible, some of them are loose, but some of them aren't, is try to get that piece off, and that piece isn't going to come off. So that means we have to be really, really gentle when we do this one and get the O-rings over these threads, or if we can get the O-ring over here. I'm not feeling any really sharp spots on here, so we might be able to get this way. So get our handy dandy little pick here. Alright, that one's gone. Once you get this done, the solenoid done. Alright, you want to be careful not to bend that. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of people don't go into this guy, because they end up bending it a little bit, and they end up doing damage to these guys. So a shocker tech a long time ago just said, never ever mess with these unless it's leaking. So I will give you guys the same advice. If it's not leaking, don't mess with it. If it is leaking, then get in there and replace them. All right, last one. And I said, getting these ones now. These ones are the, I'm gonna double check, but it should be the 1 millimeter by 3. All right, so go in the treasure trove of O-rings again. I'm gonna pull out 4 for this side and 2 for this side, so that makes a total of 6. Okay, there is 5 and 6. All right. So again, just like any other one, we'll lube up all of them at the same time. Just kind of put some lube on your finger, grab them. And what I'm going to try to make this as easy as possible. Put the first one on, we'll slide it down over this. Make sure not to get it stuck on anything. Again, you don't want to bend it or anything like that, so I'm just going to slide it down. Use this little guy to pick it up a little bit and get it over the little hump there. All right, and each one after this, same thing. There's 2. Now, if you ever open up a marker and it doesn't have this this screen on there, it is something that protects the solenoid quite a bit from trash and all that, from what comes in from the fill stations. And so if anything, you probably want to put a filter somewhere in the on the side of the regulator. They have those. So there is one solenoid done. That's the harder solenoid insert. So now, last 2 little bits. bad one. They're not necessarily bad, just need, for me, replacing every one of them. I gotta give a shout out to my little girl here. She's been helping me do all these videos. That way you guys can learn a little bit. So thank you to my little girl. All right. There we go. And again, that's just a thing that I do. Make sure to do a little bit of lubricant in case anything came off while I was sliding them down. It doesn't take very much. Just a little on each one. You want this thing to seal up nice, and first time you don't have to be sitting there taking this thing apart 10 times to get it to work. Okay. Solenoid insert with the screen goes on the left-hand side. And again, slowly push it down. Just like that. Take your 1/8 inch. That's your thread in. Good to go. And then this guy right here. And slowly get it in there. You don't want to catch the O-rings on anything. Straight down just like that. All right. Insert. Now sometimes these need a little bit of adjustment, but generally if you screw them down, they should be right where they need to go, and you're in good shape. Sometimes you do have to adjust them back and forth to get them to seal up 100%. But so that's basically the maintenance on the regulator, maintenance on that. This marker should be good to go at this point. So I'm going to basically put the ESA back on and go from there. But hope you learned something today. All right, so at this point I've added some air to the marker. Listen to it, no leaks. That's the biggest thing, make sure no leaks. At this point I've turned up the regulator a little bit. It shoots. And eyes work. So what I would do at this point is get some paint. I'd chronograph it, and then make sure everything is running the way it should be. Shoot a stream, and then I'd put it up on eBay, letting everybody know it works. So there you go. So there is an SFT. Kind of go through with it, make sure everything's working beautifully. So if you have any questions, obviously hit me up on via email, usedpbgearguy@gmail.com. I'll be more happy to answer any questions at any time. And like I said, I will be selling O-rings through there. Good quality O-rings that replaces everything on here, even the hard to find ones like that 1475. So until next time, thanks so much, guys, and have a great weekend, and go play some paintball. All right, bye. All right, so first of all, I want to say thank you for checking out my videos on all the markers and all the things that I do here on my channel. Without y'all kind of coming and checking things out, I wouldn't be able to sell it. So that's something that keeps me in the game and keeps me playing. So thank you, once again for that. Second, obviously, right here, it's going to have the subscribe button. Make sure you click on that. I'm always producing new videos with some new markers that I'm selling, and also maybe something that I've done or something I picked up that you may have not seen in a while, things like that. There's always all kinds of things I find. All right, so also the other thing, comment down below. Tell me anything that you like about the channel, what you don't like. Any feedback for me, maybe I misspoke on something, things like that, just let me know. But for that, obviously one of the big things is, our sport needs to grow. So get out there, educate some folks on maybe how to work on their guns, or educate them how to play the game a little bit better. But the big thing is get out there and play some paintball. So again, thank you guys so much, and have a great week.